Honestly, we do not need another engineer. We do not need another doctor. We do not need another teacher. What we really need are kind doctors, empathetic teachers, engineers who can find solutions and have the heart to change the world for better.
I love it.
That really is what they should be looking at.
Hi, my name is Eric. Welcome to Ethic Nation Podcast, a platform for me to pick the brains of amazing humans who are creating social impact through their life and work. This is where passion, vocations, and professional lives meet. Today's guest is a dear friend of mine of almost 16 years. We've known each other since we were teenagers, studying in secondary school, and since then she has gone on a more academic route, had the chance to study at the NUS University Scholars Program, and did her master's degree in geography with a research on emotional geographies of education in Singapore, which really explores how emotions influence human relations and power structures in the education system. This all led to her path on being an educator in Singapore for the last 7 years until her recent sabbatical. As an educator who worked with young people across different age groups as well as socio-economic backgrounds in both private and public settings, our guest today will be sharing with us her journey as an educator in Singapore, how emotions are being used as tools for governance in Singapore, and how do students and teachers experience and negotiate emotional governance in Singapore as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Clara Ang.
Hello everyone.
Yes, so how is sabbatical going for you so far?
It's good. So I think this is my third or fourth month. It has been a very relaxing and healing
journey.
Few months. Yeah, so it's the first time in my entire life that I am able to take a break away from all the hustling. So I definitely recommend anyone who can afford a break to take a break as well.
Right.
Yeah.
What inspired you to take a break?
Honestly speaking, it was health issues, and I was experiencing burnout. And I think at that stage, I don't know that I was having burnout until I started talking to people to entertain the idea of a sabbatical or a break.
Right.
And then I guess you are having a burnout and you really needed this break.
So let's talk about sabbatical, right?
Yeah.
What are people's impression of a sabbatical, taking maybe a long-term break from work?
I think like in Singapore, it's quite rare. I think structurally, it is not there and the culture is not there. But I think overseas is quite normal, especially in not American, like a European context, a sabbatical, or even academic context. So I actually had a conversation with an ex-colleague of mine one day before I went on my break. And she was like, I am so happy for you it is a sabbatical, because actually in the civil service it's called a no-pay leave, right?
Yes.
And there might be a lot of negative connotations relating to getting a no-pay leave. And in an Asian society, you will be like, oh no, if I go on leave, then what's going to happen to the work? Am I giving more work to my co-workers and things like that? So actually, prior to my sabbatical also, that it is a whole journey, and I actually learned a lot of things about like resting, about the politics relating to resting, getting a break and all this. Currently in Singapore, it is a privilege to be able to take a break. And I am able to take a break because I do not have children.
Yes.
Because I calculated my finances. But at the same time, so that's the basic level, right? You still need to survive every day. You still need money to be able to, like for me, if I'm taking a break, I know that I need to be able to live a comfortable lifestyle. I don't need to scream and save every day. If I want to eat out, I will eat out, that kind of thing. And my house has been paid for the duration that I am having a break, right? So yes, there is this financial aspect. And therefore, that's why I say it's a privilege. But there are also a lot of people who are a lot more financially independent than I am, who do not dare to take a break because they are like, oh no, I'm not going to dig into my savings to take this break.
So, okay, going back to the start of your career.
Yes.
How did the journey of teaching start for you?
It has been a long journey. It's like more than 10 years in the making. So it is a mix of personality, plus preferences, passion, as well as honestly also very practical reasons.
Okay.
Yeah, so I love sharing.
You love sharing.
Basically. And passion being, so when I was in secondary school, and I think we have very good teachers. The
Very
thing
good
about
teachers.
neighborhood school teachers is that
They have the heart.
they really have the heart and they are there for you, and they are not judgmental, most of them. Most of them, they are not judgmental. They are just there for you. And you're like, what? Every day, being crazy in front of them, but they are still full of patience.
And presence.
So they're always there for you. So I was like, oh, a lot of them actually had a positive impact on me. And think by the time I was in Sec 4, I remember we were made to do some goal setting. And then I was like sitting, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it because my philosophy, my teenager philosophy, do not set goals because you're going to feel disappointed.
You're going to
anyway.
fail anyway.
Yeah. And I remember one of the teachers, so she's like, no, Clara, you have to think about your future.
Right.
You have to start setting, a certain roadmap in front of you. If not, you will be lost. You will be even more lost. And so, I spoke to her, and I think she wasn't fierce, to me at all.
So that actually made you feel like, maybe teaching is a possible end goal that I can work towards. So in your career as an educator, did you face with any kind of challenges?
Challenges plenty, because I mean the job is so multi-dimensional, right? So anyway, I just wanted to ask, because I realized during my break I was chatting with people. I think people have different conceptions about what a teacher does.
Yes.
So what do you think a teacher do?
I think a teacher obviously primarily have to teach.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Educate. Not just teach like the syllabus. They have to do a bit of education in the form of maybe character development. And also, the list goes on. I would say realize the potential of whoever that they are teaching, either in small or big ways.
The first one is really seeing students falling through the cracks of the education system. So what do I mean by that? Meaning that I think in Singapore, the education system is very streamlined, even though in recent years they try to provide multiple pathways. But if you think about it, from primary school, they have a limited subject to take, right? Like you just have 4 subjects. Secondary school, you also have a few subjects that you can, there are more subjects that you can choose, but I don't think that caters to all our students. So I have taught in a neighborhood school before, and we have what we call the high-risk students, which is that they have high level of absenteeism.
Yes.
Like they might not come to school the entire week or for 3 weeks or more. We have students who continually will fail and they might retain until they cannot get retained anymore. We have students who are not engaged in class, and some of them is not because of that they are lazy. Some of them is just the wrong fit. Some of them is because they are dealing with other things outside school, like family support. They don't have financial support, or some of them, like they mingle with the wrong crowd. But when I bring students out for, let's say, outdoor adventure, or if I bring students out for other experiences, so we have some programs catering to, these high-risk kids. We'll see a whole new, different side of them outside the classroom. But to them, they might be a failure. They will be thinking, the system might think that they are failure. Some people might think that they are failure. But they are not. It's just that you're using the wrong yardsticks to measure humans who are so different. I was also a teacher in charge in drama club, right? Students are so different when they are on stage. They can memorize the entire script. They can remember which part of the stage to walk. They know everything.
Yeah.
But if I just look at their math result or their geography result or anything, they might think that they are a failure. So like even in other countries, I know we are following, the O levels track, from the UK. But even in this few years in the UK, I think 10 years ago, in O levels you have photography as a subject, you have construction as a subject, you have hairdressing as a subject.
Wow.
Imagine how much confident people will feel and how much more useful they will view themselves if you have this kind of diverse kind of environment in school. So it pains me to see students being sad or being, thinking that they are a failure. So that's a painful part for me. Yeah, and then the other parts are also like sometimes I feel frustrated as an educator, like especially students who are not from very well off backgrounds.
And I'm assuming that, effecting change requires not just an individual's effort.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? It requires a collective of people telling that, hey, the system is not working, or it's not working, but can be done better.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But how can we effect change on a scale that benefits everyone in the environment, right?
Yeah.
So was there any change that was made in your career as an educator that you see in the last maybe 7 years?
I mean, there are some. For instance, mental health is being highlighted in recent years, and then the second one is also what I mentioned earlier on, the more varied pathways than maybe let's say during our time compared to our time, and also but we still have a long way to go in terms of listening to students' voices, listening to teachers' voices, and making the change at the various levels.
Right.
I feel. So especially at a junior college level, I like to challenge the students to think more critically about the society that they live in. So that is a very large part of my what I see my job as an educator. And I told them that if you are in a privileged position, you need to think about how to give back to the society. You need to have the capacity to consider others' humanity, and that is really the central of the message that I was giving them.
That's almost like you're teaching philosophy, right?
Some parts of it, because I told them, like especially the students who are who have breezed through the system or who have all the resources to succeed, I tell them that honestly, we do not need another engineer, we do not need another doctor, we do not need another teacher. What we really need are kind doctors, empathetic teachers, engineers who can find solutions and have the heart to change the world for better.
I love it.
That really is what they should be looking at to me. I know it's an ideal, right? But I guess it is something to work towards.
Of course.
Beyond just having yourself as the center.
So can you, in your thesis, master thesis, we talk about emotional geography.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about what that is and how maybe fear being an emotion actually impacts our daily decision making, and also on a more high level structural concept?
Yeah, there are many things to unpack here. I think for the sake of our audience also, because essentially geographers are interested in studying the intersections between humans and the environment. So in the news, right, you will hear things like, what are the impacts of climate change on Singapore and Singapore's environment, for example, sea level rise. But geographers also do things like, if you talk about transport, how traffic congestion is an environment caused by human, and then what are the impacts, pollution and all that. There are also geographers studying about migration, which is a hot button topic in Singapore, right? Like, how does Singapore's economy depend on migrants? What are the living conditions of migrants in Singapore? So essentially, right, geography is about the study of the intersections between human and environment, but essentially the central concept is about space.
Tell me more.
Space. So like space can be anything. Space can be your home, space can be school, can be Singapore as a nation, or it can be globally. How are different spaces connected by business networks, for example? So the study of geography is very varied.
So space can be also intangible spaces.
Cyberspace is a space also. And
mental space?
So I will think of a body as a scale, as a space also, and this body is living right in different environments. So there is like really like very different like
Relational dynamics.
also, yeah, so flows and relations, interrelations we call it. It is very central concept of geography. So wow, he pick up very fast.
Yes, I'm an A-star student.
Yeah. So so that is the geography part that I wanted to just explore a bit, because like people were like, okay, it's about like volcanoes spewing everywhere. It's about coloring on map. I mean, yes, but those are about space, right? So the other thing, right, is about emotion. So when I talk about, like, if you say, you're very emotional, part of the study of emotion, I mean, in social sciences, beyond psychology, merely psychology, in social sciences, in geography, is to tease out that actually emotion, there is a whole spectrum of emotion. You can be happy, there is love, I mean, of course, there are negative emotions, but we should go beyond the negative connotations of the term emotional or emotion. And different emotions slides into each other. So that's one aspect. And then if we go deeper into it, right, emotions is something that is deeply, of course, personal, but it is also shared. Like, I can have the emotional energy, right? In the room, people are feeling it, right? Or like people make a joke, or like there's a very tense environment, people feel it. Emotions are shared, right? But the scale in which emotions are shared can be very big. For example, on a national level. National Day, you play "This Is Home," then oh my god, then people feel, wow, there's a feeling.
Yes.
People go to church sometimes, then they feel the the effect. So emotions can be shared, but emotions can also be very political.
Tell me more.
During the election time.
Oh, okay.
Right, it's a very emotionally charged
Yes,
event.
I remember.
So Singapore, like Singaporeans, right? There was a survey saying that Singaporeans are the least emotional people. But during election, you go to the coffee shop, you see.
Oh, the uncle.
Wow, yeah. We live in Hougang, right?
We live in Hougang, yes.
Yeah. Or like, it's just a very emotionally charged period.
Yeah.
So emotions are shared. They are personal, but they can be shared, and they are inherently very political also.
How does that proliferate in the education system?
So my idea, so there's this scholar called Clara Ang. She's not a geographer, but she's a social scientist, right? She talked about the political economy of emotions. It's really this idea that emotions, because emotions are political, they can be made use of for certain political ends as well.
For example, fear.
For example, fear. You go to the airport, you behave in a certain way. And the airport is structured in a certain way because of the fear, and there's a history to it, right? 911. Yeah, so there's this entire very big study of emotion in the social sciences. So for me, right, I wanted to look at something which is, because in recent years in education, you have this thing called social emotional learning.
Tell me more.
People bring into, last time it was called civics and moral education.
Yeah, CME.
Now it's called character and citizenship education.
Okay.
So the outcome of education, like what you say just now, right, is to cater to a big crowd, right?
Okay, yes.
It's to cater to the economy. And especially in Singapore, the dominant rhetoric narrative is that Singapore lack natural resources. All we have, human capital.
Yes.
Correct? So the education plays a very big part in churning out this human capital into what I call the ideal citizen worker of the future.
Yes.
So you invest in the human capital,
Yes.
they come out hopefully to be a STEM scientist, to be an entrepreneur, to be whatever, but they must also be law-abiding citizen, right? So in my study, what I was concerned with is studying how emotions are elicited on a large scale to produce this ideal citizen worker. But at the same time, I also study about how teachers and students negotiate on a more micro level, whether they follow this or they
Rebel.
reject or they negotiate and maneuver and pivot.
So what was your finding?
So when you talk about you asked me about how does fear circulate, right?
Yes.
But so you have picked up fear as one of the dominant emotions circulating in schools, right?
Yeah, so what is the emotion that is linked to this?
Stress. This word stress features so much in their photojournal, in our conversation. At first it was surprising, but when I delved deeper into it, it was quite telling. And of course, like as a teacher, after that, right, 5 years in the system, I witnessed a lot of stress. I experienced stress and all that. Yeah, so in my research, I realized that overwhelmingly, stress is a very dominant thing and emotion that has been brought out by the participants. In holistic education, schools need to provide a rich diversity of learning experience that cater not only to the cognitive aspects, but also the physical, aesthetic, moral, and social-emotional domains.
Seems like it has so many aspects.
Yes, so you need to be an all-rounder.
Right.
You need to be everything. So all the students need to be everything.
Right.
So, it is like, so also in the same website, right, they say that the concept of holistic education, you need to tap into each child's fullest potential. That is why our students are stressed. So it's what another academic call an impossible ideal to achieve.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, this whole thing, the stress, right, it doesn't come because there's a lot of things to do. Because there is the impossible ideal or what. It comes when people know that it is an impossible ideal, but they think that it is necessary to do it anyway.
What do you think is a solution for this?
I don't know whether there's any solution to this, but I mean, what I did was to untangle this part. So the very interesting thing that I found out was that teachers and students know that it is an ideal, but they have to achieve this ideal. And the system works not because that students cannot take the stress or can take the stress. The system works based on that you are working very efficiently because you are stressed. Therefore, teachers are producing more things, students are learning more things, but they are at the brink of being unable to cope, but they are not unable to cope. It's at the brink. So the system is working at its full potential. Yeah, it was something very, very interesting to analyze, because from my interviews, teachers are saying that, yes, I feel very stressed, but I look at my other colleagues, they are also working, right? And people are continuing this, and I don't see a way out.
So it's been a few years since you completed the research of this paper, right?
Yeah.
Has it changed your views on the state of the education system in Singapore, or has it substantiated?
No, it's substantiated, sadly. Yeah.
So has anything changed in your observation as a teacher?
As in, I think the large structural thing didn't change, right? Because it's not just education. The entire politics in Singapore, or it's a very economically centered kind of thing, right? So no, but in my research, the thing that I was also trying to find out is that is it that students are just blind followers and teachers are blind followers of this gear and cog in the system? So I look at students and teachers. So there are two levels. One level is what I call subversions, in the system. So obviously, that for students there are some that will not listen. They will just as students they will do small little stories, like how students are actually they are not powerless people. They are people with agency, and that's the central of the thesis also, that we need to see young people and we need to acknowledge that young people have agency to change things, and we probably need to look into giving them more power to change things also, more voice. They are just, they, in their small little ways, they will subvert things, they might lie a little bit, or they might do other things that they know that they can bargain for in the system. So as opposed to, the very traditional mindset of, and if we don't look at all this, right, and we don't talk to students, the mindset is just that students are adults in waiting. they are just products for you to put into the, to make into the ideal citizen worker, right?
Yeah.
We shouldn't say that. And I think it's very sad because I think in my life coaching, students sometimes they didn't know, so like they just like, okay, I need to be what in the future. I tell them that, but your value doesn't come from being what in the future. You can be something now. Now is important as well.
I love it.
So they cannot be adults in waiting.
Yeah.
You know, you must treat them as people with agency.
Already a complete human being with full
with the
agency
capacity
to think, to do,
Yeah.
to accept any consequence.
Yeah. And so it comes with both, right? So like it also gives them the sense of responsibility that, oh, when I do something, then, you know, I need to have the responsibility to, you know, to deal with certain consequences. So this agency part was something that I felt is important. Second one was also like, teachers are also not just, you know, logs there to like robot to enact things, you know. A large part of possibility come from the teacher's innate nature of the duty of care. So, for example, no teachers don't carry out curriculum, line by line. When I was interviewing a teacher, she told me that, I do tweak, my CCE lessons. So in the syllabus, it might say that, today's class is about family. So I need to talk about the notion of love in a family, right? But she said, you realize I didn't say mother and father. Because some of them do not have mother or father or both. So she will say family members or loved one or your caretaker. So by enacting, by just caring, this emotion of care, and I think care to the students, she's actually negotiating with the curriculum already.
Got it.
Yeah, but all these are very like invisible stuff that people don't think about.
But why is something so invisible, like emotion, so important for ourselves?
Also, in terms of ourselves, then of course you have the different debates or different topics, right? Self-management, emotional management, and all that. So that's a whole other topic. It can be bad, it can be good also. Emotional management, right? If it's being used for you to just be a good worker, but actually that's not good for your mental health, then that's an issue also, right? Yeah. So that's another interesting topic then that you can talk about.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think to conclude, what do you think your contribution to the education system in the years you were a teacher? Not a very long career compared to maybe people in 20, 30 years.
I do not see myself as someone who contributed a lot, maybe, but I wish through my interactions with parents, with students, with my colleagues, that in little ways and in simple encounters, it was something positive happened between these small little encounters. That was what I hope for.
Right, like a little impact that you make on people that you meet on a daily basis in school.
Yeah. And obviously they have also impacted me a lot in a positive way, which I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, that's why I like really chatting with young people. They're very interesting. They make me feel young.
So what's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm trying to find new ways of engaging. I also will hopefully start my job seeking process. Looking into things like maybe training and development or CSR or policy and research, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Eric, for having me.
Thanks, Clara. Love it. Really love our talk. If our content resonates with you, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe to our channel on all platforms that this podcast is on. This is Epic Nation, a project by the folks at Epic Dialogue, a Singapore-based marketing agency that helps change-making businesses create social impact through our sustainability branding, communications, and digital marketing solutions.